Hello and welcome to Tokyo Inklings. My name is CY, and you can find me at Tokyo Station Pens on Instagram or at tokyostationpens.com.
And my name is Jacob, and I'm a Fudefan on Instagram, and I have a blog at fudefan.com.
Hello, my name is Khuê, and you can find me on Instagram at MiraiCat.
Hi, I'm Alesa, and you can find me as Inky Rocks on YouTube and Instagram.
All right, welcome to episode 9. This is exciting. This is the first time we've had 4 people on the podcast. I think it's pretty cool. And of course, we're all here because we all went to the Wagner event last week. And so that will be the main topic of the discussion for this week. But before that, we have some pretty interesting non-Wagner acquisitions. So, let's start from there. Jacob, do you have anything for us today? Something that you got outside of Wagner?
Yeah, so I bought an old Sailor Prophet with a 14K nib. So not a small one like on modern Pro Gear Slims, but actually a large 14K. So what Sailor calls their Ogata size. Mm-hmm. Which they don't make anymore as far as I know. So I found it on Yahoo Auctions for a very good price, an incredibly good price. It was actually cheaper than a Lamy Safari. The pen
Excellent.
The pen is quite rusty, especially the rust ring, but the nib is in a good condition and it writes well. So I stuck it on a Ranga pen and that works fine. But it's almost too smooth. It doesn't quite have that
Sailor feedback.
The pencil feedback. So I do miss that. I may need your help to fix that.
All right, but you've got the broad, right?
This is a broad, right? So it looks like there's enough tipping to do something interesting there. So I have high hopes.
Yeah. And it makes sense for the broad to be more smooth as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So on my side, I had several things. The great thing about living in Japan and trawling these auction sites is that you always get these, not always, but from time to time, you get these really, really interesting vintage nibs that are cheaper than, as you say, a Lamy Safari. So I got this vintage nib, and I believe it's actually from Sailor as well. But it has this weird imprint on it that says "your gratify." No, so I don't know what that's supposed to mean, but I do want to highlight that you often get these English inscriptions on these pens, which I found particularly interesting. So it says "Superior 14K Lifetime Your Gratify, made in Japan P4." And I just thought that was a kind of a cool nib. It actually looks very, very big, but in fact it is suitable only for a size 5 pen. So I've stuck it on a Pelikan M400 nib unit for now. But let's see what I do with it. Might want to sell it, might want to keep it. I'm not sure yet. But it is quite a funny nib, and I think it's got a good story to tell. On top of that, I talked about the Super 500 last time, or previous times, but I was scouring the internet and I found another nib that looks to be a copy of the Super 500, which I posted on Instagram yesterday. It says Steady K14, and thankfully one of our friends on Instagram pointed out that our other friend, Bruno Todd, has in fact a blog post about this particular nib, and it appears to be one of those vintage Kabutoki Ginjiro nibs that you see, which was surprising because I got this pen at a very, very reasonable price considering that, and it's one of those true inlaid nibs, kind of like the Schaefer Triumphs. But the difference between these and the Schaefer Triumphs is obviously Triumph, you can unscrew them and they come off, but these are truly, truly inlaid into the section. And you can see the comparison between the two nibs there. And although this Steady nib is a bit smaller than the Pilot one, it's still very, very beautiful. And maybe I can convince somebody to make me something custom out of this. But who knows? I just thought it was quite interesting though that Pilot, when they made it, as far as I understand, they lost money making this this pen, the Super 500. So every Super 500 that they sold, they lost money. So it's interesting to me that a brand or a kind of a copycat manufacturer would copy the style, considering how unprofitable it was, even for Pilot, a much bigger company.
So you got a pen with a GK nib, but it is not actually a Bunny pen, right? Because you typically associate GK with the Bunny trio.
Yes, so it's not a Binary pen. I'm not quite sure what it is, so we'll link Bruno's blog post about this in the show notes. But it's a quite a funky little thing. Comes in one of those classic pocket pen sized pens that we used to see quite often here in Japan. And I'll show you next time we see each other. But it's got these weird manufacturing flaws, defects. I don't know what they are, but yeah, it is very funky. I think that's the only way that I can really describe this nib.
Very nice.
Then on top of that, we went to Wagner. We'll talk about this a little bit, but we saw a nib that was quite interesting, and inspired from that, I have started to experiment with making naginatas in a more diamond shape. You know how naginatas are traditionally kind of a triangle shape, whether you look at it from the bottom or straight at it. But I've noticed that this diamond shape facet that you can add on the top helps the sharpness of the nib, actually. So that's a finding that I had between last time and this time.
And also, naginata nibs, they're of course lovely writers, but they're typically absolutely terrible for reverse writing. But this one isn't, right?
Yes, this one is much better because I think maybe it's a weird way to describe it, but the room for error is much less, and it's quite let's say extra fine.
Nice.
Yep. And so I know that you got a pen actually just recently, and we're gonna see actually a video being released before this podcast goes on air. But you got something very, very exciting. So why don't you tell us about that?
I got lucky, and a Shiun kind of fell into my lap. It was totally unexpected. And one of the reasons I got it was because I had selected a broad nib. And they're not very popular in Japan, which turns out to be a really good deal for me because it turns out that the Platinum 3776 broad nib is probably my favorite nib right now. And I know I'm going against the stream here, but I really, really like the pen. The pattern on it is a kind of harlequin pattern, and it's concave cut, which makes it really interesting. And I'll have a video out by the time this comes out, but it turned out to be a little bit of an adventure because I got ink in weird places and had to take the cap apart and put it back together again. And well, that was interesting.
Well, that's interesting that you say that because a lot of internet pen friends, let's say, often ask, how does one disassemble a 3776 cap? Because a lot of them want to get this particular pen urushied. So there aren't a lot of disassembly. I would venture to say that there are no disassembly videos on the internet because for the longest time, people didn't think it was possible. So can you talk us through how you did that?
Yeah, especially since I wasn't filming it because I was panicking at the time. So I took one picture of the disassembled parts, but basically I just put it on low heat. And you can tell on most of the 3776s, there's an acrylic rod that goes up through the little Mount Fuji nut, and that's attached to the cap with glue. And I just heated it up, and then it came off.
Right.
And then basically just, wrench the little nut off, and then you pull the inner cap out from the bottom.
So so you took a kind of a heat source. So I guess in your case it was a hairdryer?
Yeah, a hairdryer, low heat, low fan.
And only the Shunkei series has the Mount Fuji nut, but the regular editions of the Platinum Century will have I think just the regular bolt, but I'd imagine that it would work in a very, very similar way.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So do you think that you would need to actually reapply glue onto the nut, or do you think it would just fit as is just by screwing?
The nut fits on just as is.
Okay, so you don't need to even reglue it.
No, the part you need to reglue is the little bubble top, the little end cap.
Okay,
that actually attaches to a little piece of plastic that sticks up through the nut.
Okay, that's
and
interesting.
Then that's and if you take a look at all 3776s at the top, if you look right down on top of the cap, there's like a darker circle, and sometimes the glue job on it's not very good if you get up close and look at it. So that's the part you're kind of disconnecting, and that you need to connect back with glue. But the nut itself just came off with a little wrench, and that's it. It was pretty straightforward.
Wow.
So you really like this pen?
Yeah, I really do. I think because if you really think about it, there aren't a whole lot of pens out there, especially demonstrator pens, that have that much texture on it. You know, like the Kawaguchi or some of the other, like the Nice, they all have like stripes or whatever.
Right,
but
they have the chasing. Yeah.
Yeah, but having that much changes is, that much difference when you're looking at it. Even from the side, it's not a smooth pen. It's a bumpy looking pen. I just don't know, other than the Roca, what else has that.
Right. And I actually tried this pen in the store as well. And I thought it was very, very light. Did you feel a weight difference between that and your other 3776s?
Actually, no. I felt like it was actually, what really surprised me is that it came with a converter, and I haven't had a converter with a platinum pen for so long. And so when I pulled it out of the box, it felt really heavy because it had the converter on the inside. But taking the converter out, or just compensating for the converter, it feels, pretty much well like the rest of my.
Okay, that must be why, because the one that I had in my hand in the store didn't have a converter in it. Right.
So that really does make a difference.
Chrome-plated converter or like gold-plated?
No, it matched the trim. It was they matched it. It was a chrome-plated one.
Okay, that's nice.
I was just really surprised.
So, Jacob, what do you think about this pen?
I do like the pattern on the barrel, and we talked about the price before. I don't think, at least here in Japan, the price is that high, compared to many other pens, especially since Bangbox sells another parts bin seller for even higher price, and people buy that in a heartbeat. So, yeah, I think the price is reasonable, especially given what we talked about, the second-hand market here, how people sell these Rocas on Yahoo auctions or Mercari for even higher than the purchase price. So, yeah, it's an okay price, and it's a very beautiful pen. I quite like it.
Yeah, speaking of the price, actually, I went to Maruzen today, and again I saw the Carnelian on display, and I noticed something quite interesting in that the Carnelian wasn't really marked up. So it's about 20,000 Japanese yen. Even being a limited edition, I guess, kind of reintroduced into the Japanese market, there wasn't a special markup for that. Whereas this pen, the Shiun, is marked up into the US market. So I think it really goes back even to our emergency episode that I think the attribution of this markup must be to do with some kind of distributor relationship or distributor margins.
Yeah, that's possible. That's definitely possible.
Okay, have you had the opportunity to take a look at this pen?
Only on pictures and not in real life. But I had a whole series of this limited Platinum 3776. I tried to stay away to not get my ability to collection stuff. So from the first model, I was just like, there's no sparkling. I won't look at it. It's not a sailor. Just close your eyes and go. So,
will you get the Carnelian then?
I'm not sure. I have only one Platinum 3776. Okay. It's the one they made the limited edition, I guess, from Kingdom Note, who is like dark brown with very, very small sparkling. Maybe 4 years ago or 3 years ago. So it's the only one. I really enjoy it, but I try to not get deeper in this.
Into plat.
Yeah.
But you already have a Nakaya collection, so it's okay.
Yeah,
it's basically
I have a
the same
Nakaya,
pen.
yeah. It's my only pen who are not shining yet.
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 Yeah. And then speaking of Kingdom Notes, did you guys see the new Kingdom Notes releases?
The watermelon one?
Yeah, so they have now a release schedule.
Okay.
From Kingdom Note, and it seems like they're going to be releasing a bunch of new Realos onto the market, basically one after the other in fairly quick succession. And to me, that's quite interesting, because it seems like, we talked about this small batch run issue with Sailor, but it seems that lots of new small batch Sailors are actually in fact coming out into the market. So Kingdom Note has released this new one just now, this watermelon one, as you say, and I think they're going to release another one next month, and then the month after that too.
Yeah, they have this kind of series every month, or the one with the tail of Genji, was it?
Yes, yeah.
So how small of a batch are we talking about?
So I'm not sure, actually. I guess it must be on their website. But I haven't really looked too much into it, because I think Sailor's, Kingdom Notes collaboration with Sailor has all these funky colors that I'm not super into all the time. The one that I really liked was the Kaoru. But other than that, I didn't really feel so attached. But this Yadorigi is still quite nice. It's not as nice as Kaoru, but it's still quite nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess there must like the series of Kyoko Shishikura-san. It's like between 50 and 90 piece per model. So I guess you can order quite small batches from Sailor, right?
Yeah, I guess that's it's gonna be a problem for Sailor. Nonetheless, a nice addition from Sailor, and who knows how long these can go, right? Like, who knows how many more of these store limited editions will come out.
Yeah.
On the other hand, Nagahara-san, he's been quiet for a while, but he's now doing a pen clinic at Nagasawa and Kobe, I think, in a few weeks, and also he's gonna plan to do one in Tokyo.
Yeah, so there's some news from Nagahara. So first of all, he has released his own ink, and the ink is called the Nib Shaper BBK, and the Nib Shaper, of course, is the name of his nib grinding business, and BBK is blue black, and this is a Sailor ink, and it's made by their ink blender Ishimaru-san.
Is it a Sailor ink?
Yes.
How did you confirm that?
Because he has released a YouTube video where he's talking about this ink and how it came about.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and again, it's made by Ichimaru-san, and you can only buy this ink if you're getting a nib grind from Nagahara. At least that's the case for now. But the story behind this ink is kind of fun. So Nagahara explained in this video how his father, Grandmaster Nobuyoshi Nagahara, he did pen clinics at one point, and he always had this bottle of Sailor Blue, because Sailor Blue was the ink he dipped pens in to test that they wrote as expected. So he got pens from customers to tune or repair, he cleaned them, he did his tuning, and then he dipped the pen in Sailor Blue to test. But even though he cleaned the pens, there was always a little bit of residual ink left.
Yes.
And that meant this bottle of Sailor Blue became something of an ink blend over time.
Okay.
And in particular, it turned darker and became something of a blue-black. And they call that the Pen Clinic Blue. And it is this Pen Clinic Blue that is the inspiration for Nagahara's new blue-black ink.
Very nice story.
So I guess you'll be getting one, Alesa.
Of course.
Yeah, I can't wait to see him because I've got a special nib for him to help me fix up. But it's quite interesting also that these are Sailor inks. Do you know if because he didn't leave Sailor, let's say, amicably with the management team.
I've heard that there were some disagreements. I'm not sure how serious that was, but you're right that this suggests that they are on at least talking terms.
Yeah, and more interestingly, I think it suggests that he's now their customer.
Yeah.
I think that's very, very funny. The tables have turned.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we are hopefully going to get a chance to get a nib grind by him later this month, because on the 23rd and the 24th of this month, he's going to be at Bangbox in Omotesando and doing nib grinding. And
Has
then,
any news come up on how to get a reservation yet?
The only thing he has said is that there's going to be a reservation system and you can only get a 30-minute slot, and he wants to make sure he can grind as many nibs as possible. So he's going to try to talk less and grind more, he said.
Oh, but 3 hours ago, Bungbox opened up a reservation, so we need to call them very soon.
Hurry up, yeah.
Okay, so they released this 3 hours ago. Okay. So I guess we'll be calling them tomorrow, and they only accept reservations during their operating hours. So tomorrow at 11 o'clock, mark it in your calendars.
But you can also get a nib grind from him online now. So he, as of last month, or not online, but mail-in. So as of last month, he accepts mail-in orders. So you can go to his website and there's this Google form you can fill out. Unfortunately, at least for now, this is only for Japan, and he says this is a combination of language difficulties and risks of shipping overseas. So it's only for Japan for now, but you can send your pens to him and get them ground.
Good.
So who's planning to go to the pen clinic?
I'm not sure yet.
I probably will.
Yeah, we gotta get on the reservation list.
Yeah, let's just try to get the same time and then do what we did last time.
Yeah. And then in other news, we have some follow-up about Sailor and Plus.
Yes, so just a little bit of follow-up. So I noticed that Plus issued a press release. So I had a look at that and there was some interesting information there. So, for example, it specifically said that the funds raised from the bonds would be used to expand Sailor's factory in Khuê and to invest in new equipment and also for new fountain pen product development. So that's exciting because that means there's not just financing some existing debt, but they're actually doing some investments, which is very exciting. Another thing in that press release that was interesting was that Sailor and Plus already today have an OEM deal, but it's not actually what you think. So it's not Plus, making Sailor pens in their overseas factories. It's actually the other way around. So Plus is selling gel pens in China under their own brand, and those pens are actually made by Sailor. So Sailor has a gel pen called IC Liquid, which I've never heard of. I'm not sure if you guys have. And that pen is sold in China as Plus Aqualiner. So it's sort of the other way around, but that was an interesting bit of information in the press release.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And they also have their own Sailor pens and their own Sailor inks already in the market that I saw at Maruzen earlier. So, it's been a collaboration in the working.
That's for sure.
Yeah. Yep. And I think for our main topic, if that's all the news from us, let's go into the main topic of Wagner. Because Wagner is one of the largest pen trading events that are centered around vintage pens. So our friend Bruno Tat was very, very disappointed at Tokyo International Pen Show last year because it was basically all inks and random stationary goods without pens. But this Wagner event, which is held several times a year, this pen trading, is almost exclusively, I would say, a vintage pen trading with some modern stuff, but it's mostly secondhand. You don't see vendors, as in you don't see retailers there. What do we think about this event? Can you tell us a bit about the history of it, Jacob?
So what I know is that this particular event, this pen trading in Tokyo event, actually predates Wagner. They've been doing this for 20 years now, and the original idea came up from some online forum 20 years ago. Now it's sort of almost a Wagner event, even though the big pen club in Western Japan, YY Pen Club, also participates. So Oyakata-san was there, as he usually is. But yeah, you're right that this is mostly vintage focused, but I think in recent years you have seen more and more of the new stuff. So for example, you have ink blending, you have the Deko Kakuno, you have these pocket notebook workshops and so on. So there is both new and old, but I agree that it's mostly vintage pen vendors.
And as you say, it's been going on for quite some time. And you can even see back to legendary blogger Ross Stutler's blogs that it's been quite vibrant the whole time, but it hasn't really grown, has it, in terms of numbers? That
I'm not sure about. I've only been to two of these prior to this year, two of these events. I know that this is the bigger than the other Wagner events, and last year it was a 3-day event. But I'm not sure if it has grown or if it's more or less the same.
Yeah, I feel like the number of people feels the same. I think the venue has gotten bigger though. I remember they used to do at the Ebis 303 in Ebisu, which seemed to be a smaller venue, whereas they've now since moved to KFC, where they host almost all of those pen trading events. But I think maybe this year in particular, due to coronavirus, we've had some difficulties, I think, in attracting crowds to come. So in general, the idea was that the capacity of the room was 140, and they wanted to limit that to 70 people at a time. So as a result, what happened was that you could only have 70 people in the room, and you had to take these number cards. And you take these cards in, and if you want to go to the bathroom or whatever, you give them to the receptionist, and then you go and then you come right back. Otherwise, re-entry was not permitted. But I noticed that actually not a lot of people went to begin with. So actually, the cards were never fully given out. So you had quite a big space that was not full of many people. And on top of that, I noticed that a lot of the tables were not filled by vendors. And I'm not sure like what happened, but I think the day before or something, Mr. Mori wrote on his blog saying, "Oh, and Pentanote's gonna come. That Pentanote. So if he's gonna come, I'm sure that there's going to be some rare pens up for sale." And then we go there, and it's largely quite a disappointing table, I think, and only one model of pen and the Bauhaus Lamy, and nothing else. So it looked to me that was a very last minute arrangement. And it seemed that the vendors, they were put together quite last minute, without a lot of planning. that went into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially Pentanote, as you said, it seemed as if they came there in the rush. They brought some realos and not much else. Other than that, you had only the regulars that go to all of these Wagner events. You had Mori-san, for example. You had the Tomoko, you have Yurie, you have Oyakata, Mr. Pilot, and so on. But but I think the idea was that you could have at most 20 vendors and 50 attendees in total. But we were, as you say, nowhere near that.
Well, so what did you think about Wagner?
Well, it was definitely under-attended, and I think it was definitely a result of the whole COVID thing. So I think I came in maybe 15, 20 minutes after it started, and I think I was number 20, and I think maybe only you came afterwards. It was pretty, there was no problem on social distancing or whatever. And they're a lot more strict than I think a lot of other get-togethers, maybe in the States or whatever. But they took your temperature. They made you use hand sanitizer. And you had the card. And so I thought it was, really well handled that way. But as far as, I just think a lot of people stayed away.
Yeah, and I think this is probably going to be a preview of what we see at the Tokyo Pen Show.
If it goes, yeah.
Yeah, if it goes.
I still don't know. I still don't know if I agree that it's going to go, because it's looking like people are already talking about another SOE again.
Yeah, that and also, I think international pen show, they've contracted, I think, some international vendors too who will definitely not be coming.
Yeah,
but it's still in November. It's a ways away, so fingers crossed that it can happen, but in a safe way. And I think this was quite a good indicator of how it could be run. Although I wouldn't say it's perfect.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I also noticed last week at Wagner, in particular, something that I didn't notice before. So when you go to Wagner gatherings or events, they have these regular, what they call teirekai, which are kind of like regular meetings that they have every couple weeks. One thing that you'll notice is that there are no women at Wagner, and there are no young people at Wagner either. Oh, and then there are certainly no foreigners other than us. So that's always stuck out at me. And I think it's one of the reasons why when I go to Wagner, most of the time I don't really feel comfortable, because it's a bunch of elderly gentlemen.
Oji-san.
Yeah, it's an old boys club. And they've known each other, as Jacob, as you said, for 20 years. Yeah. They hung out, drinking buddies, and
it's the pen gang of 1970, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's us in 20 years.
Yeah. But this time I noticed that despite there being less people than usual at the trading event, I noticed actually a lot more younger women at the show. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to spend some time also talking about the changes in demographics, because obviously, I'm a relatively younger patron, but still a male, so it's not that out of place for me. But I want to get Alesa and Khuê, I want to get your thoughts on being a lady in the Japanese pen scene, especially when you go to these events and you don't see so many women at the table, and whether you see there being a change, and did you notice the same thing as me, that there were a lot of younger ladies at this event this time?
Yeah, compared to the last year Wagner event I went the first time exactly 1 year ago. I feel the change in the people who were there was Yurie, but I didn't see her last time. But maybe I miss her because it's 2 or 3 days, so sometimes not they are not there the 3 days, the vendors, and maybe because some of the table were selling inks, like there was this Tono and Lim new release for Lichtop, and we met this woman from Deep Aqua who made 2 inks with Tono and Lims too. So maybe as they publish on their website, maybe the non-usual customer were more interested in these inks, and then all these pen case, silk pen case, all these handmade notebooks. So I guess it's not only fountain pen, not only vintage fountain pen, but all the accessories on stationery. Maybe it will help the customers to get more diversified, as we talk about this at the Tokyo Pen Show, where the main customer is the young woman to the housewife, 50, like mother, shufu people, like maybe it will open it a bit. But I remember the first time I visit Wagner, I felt a little bit out of
place?
How to say? Yeah, out of place, because I was lucky that Jakob was there, so I knew someone who speaks Japanese, because every table they speak with me only in Japanese, and they look at me like, are you stupid or what? Why don't you answer? And I was like, I just arrived maybe 2 months in Japan, and I was like, oh, it will be a very difficult one. But what is fun is like all the tables, they remember me now. It's like, oh, she's the looking Japanese but not speaking Japanese girl. So yeah, it's me. So this is very fun, because they always say, oh, I can make a discount. I remember you from last time. So yeah, good. But yeah, this is my, yeah, it changed a bit. Slowly, but it changed a bit.
So what do you think?
I agree with what Khuê is saying. When I first went to Wagner, I felt like maybe I was Jacob at the ink swamp or something, just really stuck out. And definitely there was like, well, what are you doing here kind of feeling. But I think a lot of that isn't so much being a woman or anything. I think it was just mainly just not being a regular member. But I don't know if it is going to open up more. I think it's very telling that Jacob came away without a pen. He bought an accessory, and I came away with just buying ink, and I didn't buy a pen. So there was definitely more offerings there to entice people who aren't just strictly into vintage pens. But I think it's going to be a little bit of a tough sell, because that 2,000 yen entrance, if you're going to buy a 2,000 yen bottle of ink, you're already paying 2,000 to get in. So that's going to be a little bit tough. But I think if they want to have more people actually buy more things, they are going to have to look toward non-vintage pens and incorporate that too. And I think, like you said, the Tokyo International Pen Show really showed that people are interested in a wider array of tangential things to fountain pens.
So you both said, as me as well, when we first went to these Wagner events, it was kind of uncomfortable also because, we were not, and maybe are not regulars that participate in the kind of Twitter chat and stuff. But after, after a few years now going, how do you feel, do you feel that there's a difference in the way that they talk to you now? Alesa, particularly, you said that you kind of got the "what are you doing here" vibe. Do you still feel that when you go?
Not really. I think I'm just, like Khuê said, I'm the one that, bumps into people and asks them all kinds of questions. So that's kind of like how they've classified me, and I'm kind of a regular. So like I said, I think a lot of it is just that they've seen me often enough now that they're a little more willing to talk to you and stuff.
And you've been to U.S. pen shows too, right? So how does that? What's the difference? Do you feel like there's some similarities there?
Not really. Well, I mean, of course it's a pen show, but with Wagner, I feel like all the vendors and all the people that go regularly all kind of know each other, and they may go out and do something. But just like we did this last one, we all went out and had lunch. It wasn't like we associated with anybody that was actually, tight with the Wagner Club. We kind of did our own thing. But when you go to pen shows in the States, man, it's just like everybody kind of mixes in and talks, and it's it's not so delineated as a club, and you're coming to a club meeting, you're coming to a pen show.
Yeah, and Jake, when did you start visiting Wagner?
I think the first time was 2017, and I think there was only one guy there who looked like a foreigner, and I walked up to him and I brought up on my phone Bruno's blog, and I asked, "Are you the guy writing this blog?" And yes, that was
him. Great, amazing. And then that's how you met Mr. Bruno Taut. Yeah.
I met Bruno for the first time at Wagner too. You introduced me to him, Jacob.
Yes,
remember? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the first time I went to a Wagner event was last year's February meeting, before I met all of you. And actually, I remember because Jacob, you posted on Reddit about your Wagner adventures, and I think I asked you like 3 times, what is this? Where are you going? And then you kind of linked me out to Mori-san's blog,
right?
And I checked it out, and then I went. I remember seeing you and Bruno talking to Mr. Pilot. But I didn't come and talk to you because I didn't, we've never met in real life. But now going back, I certainly recognize a lot more members, and it's interesting to see. I think particularly for me, this vendor brought this thing again, and this hasn't sold yet.
Yes.
So yeah, so that's always funny for me to see. And I think to what you two said, the most popular tables at last week's event were I don't know her name, but the lady with all the red pens.
I don't know her name too. The first table.
Yeah, she was very popular, I think, because she was at the door.
Mm-hmm.
We had Tomoko Lichtop. Her table was quite popular because she had those 2 Tono Limbs inks and Mr. Pilot.
Yeah.
One thing that was not so popular was Mr. Mori's table. I don't know if you've noticed, but not too many people went to look at his pens.
He was selling. Was he the one who sold the limited edition of Tono and Lim only if you buy the pen? Okay.
Yes, I think if you went there the first day, you had to buy a pen to get the ink. But on the second day...
Yeah, he told me. He said, come back tomorrow. I was like, no, I'm not there. I'm not here tomorrow.
Yeah. And Jake, what did you think about the pens?
He had a lot of Taiwanese pens. I find that interesting. So we know from before that he has this collaboration with Fine Writing International, but also has Penlux. He had some Laban pens. I think there was another Taiwanese brand that I'm forgetting now. He also had his pens that he had done his own lacquer on, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not sure how well they sold. I only went like once, twice to his table, and they look interesting.
That's a nice way to put it. So did you see the pens?
Yeah, I just kind of glanced at them pretty quick, but I was kind of on an ink hunt.
So no, the brass lacquered pens didn't do it for you?
No, lots of times, a lot of them, you look at them on the blog ahead of time, and I just wasn't that fired up about any of them.
Yeah,
I think I've bought more pens from Mori-san than from anyone else at Wagner up until now. So I bought several fine writing pens, and I bought several of these Wagner 3776 pens. Most of them are sold now, but I bought many pens from him. But it's also fun to talk to Mori-san. He's actually, we keep, in a friendly way, we keep bashing him, but he's actually very friendly to talk to, and he knows a lot, and he's happy to share his knowledge. So I do enjoy talking to him.
Mm-hmm. He seems really fun.
Yeah, he's a funny guy as well.
So one more thing, I just want to mention one more thing about Wagner that I thought was interesting. So I went to Pentanote's table and I got a chance to talk to them a little bit, and I asked about any other because they didn't have any pens to sell. I was asking if they're gonna release any more pens soon, and they gave me some interesting information that I explicitly got permission to tell, and that's they're gonna release at least two new pens later this year. So they're gonna do one more Sailor, I think it was a Reala, but I may have misremembered. But the other thing that's more interesting is they're going to do a custom pilot pen. So the base model is going to be Pilot Custom Heritage 912, but it's going to be with various Pentanote customizations. And we talked in the past about how Pilot doesn't do many, special editions, like store exclusive collaborations. So I'm looking forward to see what comes out of this.
Yeah, especially I think store collaboration from Pilot, as you said, is not so common. I think it will be quite interesting because Pentanote is also known for making quite interesting pens, even with Sailor. I think among the special editions of Sailors, Pentanotes are certainly one of the most popular ones.
We're looking forward.
We are. So, I think it's the most exciting part of the podcast. What did you buy? So, Jacob?
So I only bought a pen wrap this time. So there's this small shop. There's a one-person shop called Penguin Kaban, and they make these handmade pen cases and pen wraps. I bought a nice leather pen wrap that I really like. But yeah, there was nothing else really that I found that interesting, mostly because I can find usually better prices on Mercari or Yahoo Auctions, at least for me, because I'm usually looking for, it depends, in terrible conditions, because that's kind of fun, but also because I'm buying just standard production models, so just a plain vanilla Mont Blanc 146 and not some exotic, special writer's edition that a lot of people want. So I usually find better prices online, which is why I rarely buy from, Mr. Pilot's Table and so on. So I only got a pen wrap this time.
Can you talk a bit about the difference between Yurie and Penguin? Because I think a lot of people in the West know about Yurie's pen wraps with her association with the YY Pen Club. And she's, I think, the one that's actually helping YY sell these pens outside of Japan. But not so many people are familiar with Penguin.
Yeah, so the design is a bit different. So Yurie is more about this kimono fabric. The pen cases look, they're very elegant, but they're not the kind of pen cases that you would. You feel like you want to be very, very careful with the pen cases because they're so pretty. At least this leather pen wrap I got from Penguin Kaban, they looks a bit more rugged, something I can more use as an EDC pen case. And I think that's true in general with Penguin Kaban's pen cases. They're not, they look more EDC friendly to me.
And what about you, Khuê and Alesa? Do you have any of these pen cases, either Yurie or Penguin?
Khuê does.
A few.
Yeah.
You didn't. You sounded kind of jealous there.
I was looking, but I had ink to buy.
I think Alicia has a particular Sakura in her head, and she didn't have Yurie didn't have the Sakura fabrics with her. So it will be for later online order or something, or next pen show.
So, Khuê, what did you get?
So I 2 years ago I ordered my first pen wrap with Yurie. It was a big 7-pen wrap, and I ordered online. So I was in Tokyo, but we didn't meet. I chose the fabrics by picture. And so then this weekend was the first time we met in person, and she was really nice because Alicia helped me for the translation because I couldn't answer very well in Japanese. And she was very nice because she thanks for all the like on Instagram and the way I share my picture and everything. And she gave me one. She made a small lucky charm, like how do you call that? Like a small bowl,
like a dongle maybe. Like a dongle or something.
Yeah, and in red. And she gave it to me. She said that she guessed it will go very well with my my pen wrap, because it's bigger than the red marble that she attached to it. And it was a very nice, touching gift. And then I told her that I want to make one pen case for just one fountain pen. And so I choose the fabric and everything. And she will send it to me by post as soon as she finishes it. But she's a very smiling lady, and it was very nice to see her in real life. And then so this is one of my purchases. And then with the help of Bruno Todt, I got a vintage pilot capless, but it's a very, very funny model. It's not like the typical capless when you press the N button to release the nib. It's a model from 1968, late 1968, and it has a sliding mechanism. So there's a small button on the clip, and when you press it with the gravity, the nib, like the small door will open, and then the nib will fall down. And so to cap the pen, you have to press the button again and stand the pen, so the nib will slide again inside the pen. So there's an article on Bruno Todt blog about this C 2050 SS model. I will give you the link. So I was really happy with this pen, because I love the Pilot capless vintage, but there are so many models, so many colors. I don't want to get lost in this new collection. So I'm happy to find one or two a very special model, but I won't get all the colors and all the plating and everything. And then with Alicia, we got some inks, but I will leave this to Alicia so she can share.
Actually, I was quite surprised, because I had said before that Tono and Limbs is taking over Japan, and it's true. I think every ink that was being sold there, I don't know, was Mr. Mori's ink also from Tono Limbs? Yeah.
Yes.
And I got, the same two that Khuê got from Like Trope. But what was really interesting, what she had addressed, was Deep Aqua, and I think it's just basically a lady that just commissioned 2 inks. And I mean, that's just amazing. I mean, she just kind of, maybe we should do an ink with Tono and Limbs, because of just every ink that was being sold there was some sort of collaboration. And then I think she just decided she wanted to sell a couple of inks, and she made this ink called, I think, Winter Morning, and it's really pretty. So it is true. They're taking over Japan.
Yeah, I've heard that retailers really like to work with Tono Limbs, because they do a lot of small batch stuff. So you can get them fairly easily. Yeah.
And they allow glitters and shimmering inside the ink, which Sailor doesn't.
Yeah, they'll do anything.
Yeah. Well, they've got that one that's a pigment and a shimmer. And it's still in my preppy, and it's still working fine.
Yeah.
It's been about a month now. So,
I got, I think, maybe the most pens. So I got 2 1971 caplesses. So these caplesses are interesting because they are mostly metal. So online you'll find these called the metal stripe caplesses, and you'll recognize the stripes from the Muse, because most of the Muse out on the market are the stainless steel Muse, right? You've seen those before. But there are also models of Muse that are black striped, and then there are also ones that are white striped. So the white striped ones are relatively rare, and the black striped ones are more common. But they also did this black striped model on the capless. And so I got a black stripe for me and a white stripe for a friend. And these matching caplesses, vanishing points, as they're called in the Western market. these caplices are quite interesting. Caplice designs have gone through many iterations. We'll link Bruno Taut's blog, but he's a great resource on caplices. As Khuê said, you got the gravity caplice, and I think this came a bit after the gravity one. And several differences that it has to the modern caplice. First of all, the cone of the nose unscrews. So the clip unscrews off the barrel, which might make this a urushi candidate for me. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah. And then the back kind of barrel is fully metal, and it's really quite interesting. The threads are metal on plastic, and the nib units are different. So the modern nib units are actually just a little bit shorter, I think, than the vintage ones. At least when I put a modern nib unit into the caplice. When I click the pen out, it doesn't fully come out, so it's a bit short. Oh, really? Yeah. But what I've done is I've taken I don't know if you are aware, but caplices usually come with the nib unit, and on the nib unit there's this metal how do I say it? Cartridge cover. Yep. Yeah. So I found out that in fact the cartridge cover is different, because the new ones, the modern ones, are kind of friction fit, but in the vintage ones there's this stopper in the back cover, and if you attach this back cover, if you use this vintage back cover, it actually extends the nib unit so that it's long enough to use a modern nib unit inside this caplice. So I've got my modern SU, rhodium SU, which I bought from gouletpens.com, and I have that in my caplice right now, and I have to say, this is probably my favorite model of caplice. It's just incredibly well done, and the logo is kind of coming off, but other than that, it's really such a sturdy pen. You wouldn't have imagined that this was made now 50 years ago. Yeah. So that's really, really, I think, quite incredible in terms of how long lasting. I mean, this clearly looks retro, but it also looks a bit futuristic at the same time. And yeah, it's really incredible, the design language of Pilot and how strong it was back in the 70s and the 80s. And I hope they bring this kind of design language back to the market. Yeah. Yeah. One story, though, that I have with this caplice, when I bought it from Mr. Pilot, was that the white one had a clicker that worked fine. You can hear it, right? The black one didn't click very well. And I noticed it at Mr. Pilot's table, but I bought it anyways. Well, what I didn't realize was that the pen was unsalvageable, because the spring. So how caplices work, I mean, for everybody who's used a ball pen with a click, you've kind of seen the way that the mechanism is, and it's exactly the same in this pen, but the spring that was attached to the caplice, to the knock, actually rusted and got twisted in a way that it kind of fell off the mechanism, and it snapped in 3 pieces. So when you click, nothing happened because there was not a long enough spring to effectuate the click. So I brought it to the Pilot HQ, and usually Pilot HQ is quite good. I heard from other people that they're pretty good at doing repairs if they have parts. So bring this to Pilot HQ, and they said we had no parts. And I said, okay, can you disassemble the knock for me? And they're like, no, because it's fit in there so that it will never come out. And so I was very, very disappointed because I spent a lot of money on this pen. And I was thinking of maybe asking some custom pen maker to help me make a new knock or something along those lines. And then I realized I had a vintage faceted capless that had a crack. So, what do? I ripped the knock off of that one. And then I cut the original knock from this pen out of the barrel, and I fit the other knock into this pen, and it works quite well. You can hear the click now. Yeah, very satisfying. So I'm very happy with this repair job. I'm very relieved actually with this repair job. Now I actually have a functioning pen. But yeah, that's my spoils of war from Wagner.
That was the picture you had, like the spring pieces all over the place, right?
Yeah, that was the picture. It was ugly. Yeah, so we'll link the picture to the show notes. And in case anybody wants to restore a capless, make sure you save your old cracked caplesses. All right. So we haven't done listener questions in a while, so maybe we can do some listener questions?
Sure.
Okay. I think this is quite timely for our podcast this week. And we got a shout out from the Pen Addict last week. So really thank you to Brad and Mike for referencing our show. In fact, this week's listener question comes from a reference from the Pen Addict. So Greg, reference from the Pen Addict, asks, "Thanks for the podcast. It is very informative and provides insights to the Japanese market not normally available to the US. It's a great job. If I were to time my vacations to hit the major pen shows in Japan, when should I be looking to schedule that, assuming that COVID-19 is no longer an issue? Are there major pen shows outside of Tokyo?"
Yeah, so I think it's easier nowadays because if there's only one event you can go to, then that will be Tokyo International Pen Show, I would say, unless you're very much into vintage, in which case the pen trading event, which is normally around May or around Golden Week, so May, June. I think outside Tokyo, there are a few events around the Kansai area. So I know that the retailers there, they have various events. And then also YY Pen Club have their YY Pen Day. And I think this year's one is actually this month. I can't remember exactly when. But yeah, the short answer is that if there's only one, if there's only one event you can go to, it should be Tokyo Pen Show, which this year is like November.
I would actually disagree with you on that, Jacob. I think if there's one pen show that you should go to, it should be the Kobe Pen Show. Because
Nagahara.
Yeah, because that one is actually also pen oriented, but they have various different and interesting people that go, such as, for example, Pen BBS shows at that one. I think it might be the only show that Pen BBS shows up. And
they're actually coming to Tokyo this year, though.
Are they?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting because they have also a lot of shop exclusives that you wouldn't necessarily find in Tokyo. I think some of the best shop exclusives come out of Kobe, come out of Osaka. There's Morita, there's Nagasawa, and it also gives you a good opportunity to see something outside of Tokyo. And Tokyo can always come back. Tokyo is going to be Tokyo, but these other smaller stores, as we've often mentioned on this show, they usually carry some very, very interesting products that kind of force you to leave Tokyo. But both of those, I think, are great destinations if you can't make it. And I think Kobe is usually in August, I want to say.
Yes.
And that's separate from YY. Yeah. Khuê and Alesa, do you have any recommendations for our listener?
If you happen to come like just for one event and you still want to shop more, there's still Mercari and Yahoo auction. which is all year round.
All year round. All right.
And actually, I would add in that just from a different point of view, there is no set time, but if you can find out ahead of time if there's another ink with Itoya or another Inkanuma, that there just is nothing like that in the world. So you can go to different pen shows and things, but I just don't think there's any ink shows anywhere. And the amount of ink they have is just mind-boggling.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. That's a really, really great
ink
point.
And paper.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Bungajoshi.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go into our next question. AJ from Instagram asks us, your thoughts on Midori notebooks and their popularity in Japan? ? I prefer it over Tomoe River, but seems like it's just not discussed a lot compared to other Japanese paper.
I use both. It's depend of the ink, I will say. It's depend of the wideness of the pen and the inks you're using, but Midori react very well with the fountain pen inks. Just that the sheen of certain ink or the shade won't be as vivid than with Tomoe River. But Midori is a very good for my daily use. I have a lot of Midori notebooks and journals, and it's a very good paper.
Yeah. What about the others? Do you use Midori?
Well, I've used it especially when I was living in Hawaii because that was accessible. But in the end, I prefer Grafilo and Tomoe River, mainly not so much for what other people like it for. I just like it because it's not coated, and Midori is just a little too coated for me.
Yeah. And Jacob, what do you think?
So I really like Midori paper because it has a bit of a texture. It feels very pleasant to write on. But I would say it's actually quite popular here in Japan. You find the regular MD notebooks in many stores, and then obviously you have the Traveler's Notebook, which I guess not everyone realizes is Midori MD paper. But then also you have Midori planners that are sold in many bookshops and stationery stores in Japan, and they also use Midori MD paper. So I would say that Midori MD paper is fairly popular in Japan.
Yeah. And I want to add here that kind of like plus Midori, most people might not realize it's actually part of a huge company. It's part of a company called Design Fill, who specialize in making notebooks. So the plotters that we talked about previously, MD, Knox, they're all owned by Design Fill. So Midori comes from a family of paper manufacturer or notebook manufacturers that are very, very good at what they do. I think actually on a different point of view from Alesa, I think that actually Midori is less coated than Tomoe River.
Oh, really? Really?
Yeah, in terms of how it feels, to me at least. And that's actually the problem for me. It's not that I like the coating. For example, I think Rhodia is too much, and Grafilo, I haven't had too much experience with Grafilo, but when I did, I remember it was super coated. I wasn't like a fan of that. And especially no refill, I hate that paper because it's so coated.
Yeah, well, that's just something totally different.
Yeah.
It's not paper.
Yeah, it's plastic, right? But
the ink never dries.
Yeah. But Midori, I think the issue with me and Midori is not so much the effect of the ink on the paper, but that it absorbs my hand oils.
Oh.
So
you said.
When I write on the top, it's perfect, and then once I get to the bottom of the sheet, it kind of absorbed my hand oils, and I can feel, I can see that ink is feathering a bit on the bottom, and that really bothers me. And that's something that has never happened to me with Tomoe River. That's why I like Tomoe River so much. But I would say, Midori is probably more popular in Japan. And Tomoe River is not very popular.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. It's not that popular.
Yeah. Speaking of which, it's kind of a side tangent, but Tomoe River is changing manufacturers, and apparently the new one is not the same.
Yeah, I think you talk about that in one of the first right?
Yeah,
A
we talked
podcast.
about it in one of the previous podcasts, but apparently the new Tomoe River has started to come out into the market, and apparently it's not I don't want to say it's not as good, but apparently it's not the same.
Okay, we need to test it.
Yeah. So I've stocked up on my Tomoe River notebooks. I heard that and went out and bought 3 at Maruzen. Yeah.
And we'll see how Hobonichi, because they use Tomoe River for their journal, so we'll see how it will change.
All right. I think last question, and then we wrap it up.
Okay.
All right. So Marcus from, again, the Pen Addict podcast. Thank you so much. Hi, CY and Jacob. I am a first-time commenter and listener since the first episode. I have a question. If I want to get into adjusting nibs, no grinding, what kind of equipment and educational resources are out there? I look forward to your discussion.
Yeah, that's a question for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I picked this question for me. But before I go into it, have you tried to kind of tune and adjust your own nibs without grinding?
Well, I basically do adjust my own nibs, and then when I mess it up, I give it to you.
I only grind my nibs when I was in school to make it fatter, like with some sandpaper.
Yeah. What about Jacob? Do you ever venture into adjusting your own nibs?
So the only thing I would do is I would adjust. I would make sure that the tines align, and I would use some brass shims sometimes to adjust ink flow and remove some paper fibers or whatever. But that's the extent of it. I have tried before. I can't remember what I did, but it didn't end well. So I stick to my brass shims.
So where did you get the resources? How did you get the idea to use brass shims or adjusting? Where did you kind of look to when you were trying?
Oh, I think in my case that must have been the Pen Habit, those YouTube videos, and then I went to Tokyo Hands and got some brass shims.
Alesa, you have any hints for our listener?
Well, I think, just looking at different things on YouTube, and the Goulet Pens has their big instructional thing. I don't know if it's so much about adjusting your nibs, but I think I started there and then went on to pen tooling and stuff like that. So, but it's just from being around everybody else, and they start doing stuff and you just kind of mess with it too.
Yeah, I think those are super, super good suggestions. Especially, I would suggest everybody who's interested in adjusting their nibs to go watch the Pen Habit series. Matt does a very, very good job on that. I've also watched the Goulet series as well, and that's also very, very good. So before you think about touching your nibs, go watch those 2 series. It's very good. So you'll find them at the Pen Habit on YouTube. Matt's since retired from doing pen videos, but still his work remains on the internet. So that's we're all thankful for that. And then of course Goulet as well. After you watch those videos, you should go to Richard Binder's website and see his PDF on nibs, and he has a whole document about different ways that you can tune the nibs. So go look at that document, and then I think the most efficient way is to just try it, and you're gonna fail a few times, but try it. Try to imagine the shape of the nib, and I've said this to Alesa, I think you mentioned on your videos, but a fountain pen is a machine. So think about how this machine should work. Think about how the nib should look like, and it's physics. It really is just physics. So think about how the tipping would touch the paper, and how that would affect the ink flow on the paper, and try to see if your theories work, and some will and some won't. But unless you try, you will never know.
And CY, I assume you would recommend that people start with steel nibs, right?
Yeah, start with steel nibs unless you're me. Then you would destroy 14K nibs.
Sorry, I'm laughing so hard.
No. Yeah. But
do you own any steel nibs?
Me?
Yeah.
You mean do I have them in pens or do I own any?
Well, do you own any? You've never
There's some steel nibs. There's some steel nibs in my house. I just take them out of my pens.
That's what I meant. So I didn't think you actually wrote with any, do you?
No. So yeah, I think yeah, go buy some gin house. Buy some gin house and they're great to practice, or can writes. That's very interesting as well. Otherwise, I think at shows that Binder goes to, you can take a workshop from him as well. All right, so I think that's a wrap, guys. We had a great episode.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's been the episode. My name is CY. You can find me at tokyostationpens.com or on Instagram at tokyostationpens.
And my name is Jacob, and I'm Foodafan on Instagram, and I have a blog at foodafan.com.
Thanks again for having me. My name is Khuê, and you can find me on Instagram at miraikat.
And thanks for having me. I'm Alesa, Inky Rocks on YouTube and Instagram.
Thank you so much for joining us. You've been great guests. I think the discussion was really, really interesting, especially the different perspectives that you bring. So thank you very much. For the listeners, if you can help us comment, subscribe, review, that really, really helps us with outreach and reaching more people. And if you want to have a discussion about this episode and find the show notes, go to tokyoinklings.com. And that will be in the show notes as well. But with the detailed links and stuff, you can find everything at tokyoinklings.com, along with all of our show notes from the past episodes. So thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.